Hey everyone, welcome back to another Safari Ltd review. Today we're taking a look at their Pachycephalosaurus, which is part of their new 2020 lineup. I ended up ordering this figure directly from Safari. It retails for $19.99, and as always, I'll leave a link in the description to Safari's site if you want to order this figure for yourself. Over the last few years, Safari has been giving us updates to some of the figures in their Carnegie collection, and this Pachycephalosaurus is definitely a significant upgrade compared to its predecessor. So before we take a closer look at this figure, let's do a couple quick measurements. This figure is about 8¼ inches long from the tip of the beak to the tip of the tail, and just under 4 inches high. So Pachycephalosaurus was one of the largest Pachycephalosaurs. It's about 14.8 feet long. So with those measurements, that put this figure somewhere in the 120 scale range. Moving on to the coloration of this figure, the primary body color of this Pachycephalosaurus is almost a rusty orange color, and then you have this greenish highlights along the back and on the flanks inside the neck. And that color just kind of reminds me of like when copper oxidizes. Just think of like the Statue of Liberty. And I do really like this color scheme. It looks very nice on this figure, and this figure has a ton of beautiful detail on it. You've got these osteoderms that are running down the back and sides. I'm pretty positive that no Pachycephalosaurs have been discovered with rows of osteoderms on this. I'm sure this is an artistic license taken by Doug Watson, who does fantastic work on these figures. But I do think it looks rather nice on this figure. They are highlighted in black paint, and then on the head right here, you have some black highlights around all those knobs and spikes on the head. And speaking of the head, let's zoom in and take a look at the beautiful head sculpt on this Pachycephalosaurus. You can see a lot of fine scale detail on the head right here, and all those spikes and knobs have a off-white color on them, and they are highlighted by black paint. You can see the beak is clearly defined and also painted in that off-white color. The eye is brown with a black pupil, and there's a little bit of a gloss coat in there to give the eye that wet look. And then turning the figure down, you can see what looks like a blemish right here, but that is actually a cranial lesion, which is a pathology that has been found on Pachycephalosaurus skulls. And I think this is so cool that this was incorporated into the sculpt. I would love to see some more pathologies incorporated into future dinosaur figures. I think it's just very interesting. Now, there's been a lot of debate about, how Pachycephalosaurs used that dome, which was up to 10 inches thick, in combat. The old theory was that, they would straighten their necks out completely and just ram into each other like head to head like this. But now, with more studying, it's been discovered that the neck is more U-shape or S-shape, where they probably wouldn't line up straight like that and collide into each other, that they will probably flank each other and swipe their skulls into each other. And another cool fact about this little lesion right here, up to 22% of all Pachycephalosaurus species have this type of injury on their skull. And some of them have more injuries than others, which lead to believe the ones with more injuries are the males, and the ones with less injuries are the females of those species. And going back to the head, you can see the ear is clearly sculpted right here. Pachycephalosaurus had pretty large eyes, and if you look at this figure from the front, you can see that this animal also had binocular vision. And going down to the body, you can see there is a lot of beautiful scale detail all over this figure. This is probably, of the three new 2020 figures, this is definitely the most detailed figure out of the three so far, the Deinonychus and the Edmontosaurus. And going down to the hands, you can see the hands are beautifully sculpted, and even the claws are painted in. And then spinning the figure down, you can see a lot of nice scale detail along the stomach, and you can see just how wide the torso of Pachycephalosaurus was, and that is just really nice research by Doug. Pachycephalosaurus had pretty wide chest, and another theory is because of their flanking, combat, that the chest was so wide to protect the internal organs from impact from the skulls. And then going down to the hips, Pachycephalosaurus also had very wide hips and a very wide tail base. You can see that is clearly evident on this model. And going down to the legs, you can see the legs are beautifully sculpted with a lot of nice muscle detail. And going down to the feet, you can see a grayish wash over the large scales on the feet. The toe claws are nicely painted. And turning it over, you can see this figure does have a cloaca slit. And you can see that row of osteoderms that start on the base of the neck going all the way down to the very tip of the tail. So all in all, this is a really, really nice Pachycephalosaurus. It is definitely a great update to their old Carnegie collection version. So let's move on with some comparisons. Here it is with some of its 2020 figure wave mates. This is the 2020 Deinonychus. And one thing why we have the figure right here, this figure is not a tripod. You can see it balances really well on his 2 feet. That tip of the tail is being held off the ground right here. And here it is with the 2020 Edmontosaurus. And here it is with some of Safari's other figures. Here it is with their feathered T-Rex. They're really, really great looking Triceratops. And here it is with their Anzu and their Ankylosaurus. And with all these figures together like that, you have a really nice group shot of some of the Hell Creek Formation dinosaurs that Pachycephalosaurus lived alongside with. Now this Pachycephalosaurus is not in scale with these figures, but it does look nice in this group shot. So final thoughts on this Pachycephalosaurus. I really like this figure. I think it is probably one of the best detailed figures of the few 2020 Safari figures I have so far. I love the inclusion of that cranial lesion. Like I said, I hope we get to see more figures designed with actual known pathologies. I just think that is just very, very interesting. I like the color scheme on it. The detail is just fantastic on this figure. The only complaint I have, and it's kind of a stupid complaint, is the price of the figure. This is a $20 figure. And when I was doing the comparisons, you saw I brought out the Deinonychus, which is a very similar size figure. And the Deinonychus retails for $6 less. You know, over the last couple of years, it seems like the prices of figures that are, you know, pretty much in similar size are all over the place. Like even last year's Stegosaurus, which is just a little bit bigger than this Pachycephalosaurus, is a $25 figure. So you do have to take that price point into consideration. Do I think this figure is worth $20? Yeah, I do, obviously, because I bought it, and I am glad I did. I think it's a beautiful looking Pachycephalosaurus. And like I said at the beginning of the video, the link to Safari to order this figure is in the description. So that will do it for the review. I'm still waiting to order the rest of the 2020 figures. I'm still waiting for the Concavinator in the Quinzaosaurus, I probably just said it wrong, to become available on their site. For some reason, they are already available overseas, and hopefully they'll be available in the US relatively shortly. So as soon as those are available, I'll be ordering those. So expect reviews of those once I get those in hands. And as always, if you're liking the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously, and it's greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.